Good afternoon, everyone. The next item of business is the selection of the Parliament's nominee as First Minister. A note explaining the procedure to be followed this afternoon has been made available to all members. I have received 6 valid nominations for selection of the Parliament's nominee for First Minister and will now announce the nominations in alphabetical order. The nominations are Alex Cole-Hamilton, Russell Finlay, Gillian Mackay, Malcolm Offord, Anna Sarwar and John Swinney. I will ask each nominee to speak in support of their candidacy for up to 5 minutes, and after the nominees have spoken, members will be asked to cast their vote for the preferred candidate. A separate vote will be called for each candidate, and members can only vote once. When all voting has been completed, any member who has not yet voted will be invited to cast a vote to abstain. There will be a short suspension while the result is verified. I will then announce the results of voting. A candidate will be elected if an overall majority is obtained. If no majority is obtained, the candidate or candidates with the smallest number of votes will be eliminated. I would ask members to note that if we have a vote between only 2 candidates, all that is required is a simple majority for one of the candidates to be elected. Members may wish to record an abstention, and no account of those votes will be taken in establishing whether a simple majority has been achieved. We will then proceed to a further round of voting. So, for up to 5 minutes, I call on Alex Cole-Hamilton.
Thank you very much, Presiding Officer. And I, for the first time, can I welcome you to your new place. Presiding Officer, I rise to speak to my candidacy for First Minister of Scotland in an atmosphere rather of hope more than expectation, because elections are a time of choosing. This is no different than the last. But the last Scottish election that we have been through was in itself a time of choosing. It was an inflection point at which all of us are offered our instructions by the people who send us to this place. And it also represented the final spoke on the wheel of revival from my party. I'm heartily glad of that, coming as it did after the best general election result for our party in 100 years. Big council gains across the chamber. The Scottish elections last week represented a massive leap forward for the Scottish Liberal Democrats, both in terms of vote share and in terms of the number of seats returned. When looking at the constituency map of Scotland, Presiding Officer, we are the second party of Scotland. We've won in places that we have never, ever won before, and we have taken a massive leap forward and the best result for my party in nearly 20 years. And the measure of that achievement, I think, was summed up well by the Times when they wrote, and I quote, that in the final analysis, it was the Liberal Democrats who perhaps did more than any other party to thwart the nationalist march to 65 seats. Don't take it from me. This is the story of this election, Presiding Officer. As much as I respect John Swinney, he has only known regression in his time as party leader of the SNP. He has only gone backwards in his efforts and experienced electoral decline. And as the old Parliament rose and we were gavelled out of session, he could not have been clearer. He stated for the whole country to hear that if he was to achieve the mandate necessary to go about calling for a second independence referendum, then he needed the public at large to award his party with an overall majority. He fell well short of that. And in large part, it was because of Liberal Democrat gains in the villages and towns of this country, he was rendered unable to deliver what he asked the people to give him. As such, I ask that we as a Parliament now lay those divisive issues aside. We put talk of the Constitution in the deep freeze and instead focus on the instructions that the people who sent us to this place have been manifestly clear that they want us to focus on. Whether that is the crisis in our health service, which is not a crisis in our hospitals, but actually born of the fact that there is such a paucity of social care in our communities that on any given night in Scotland, 2,000 of our fellow Scots are stuck in hospital, like Margaret McGill, who I raised many times in the last session, unable to go home without adequate care to receive them home, but well enough to do so, stuck in that awful limbo, which leads to cancelled operations, which leads to corridor care in our A&E because people cannot be discharged into the wider hospital. The fact that we all have constituents who've come to see us, sometimes in great distress because their young person or they themselves have been unable to get access to the diagnostics they need to diagnose particularly things around child and adolescent mental health or neurodiversity, told in parts of Edinburgh that they will have to wait 7 years for that. Or they're receiving care in crumbling hospitals that are no longer fit for purpose and in desperate need, not just of refurbishment, but in renewal in its entirety. We want to focus on lifting up Scottish education. We heard just this week the awful results of an EIS survey that shows far too many of our teachers at primary and secondary level are assaulted on a daily basis in their place of work. We want to support them by taking mobile phones out of classrooms and putting 2,000 pupil support assistants in to make sure that those newly qualified teachers have a job to go to, a stable, permanent job to go to. We want to drive down the cost of living by instructing an immediate programme of emergency home insulation to make sure that the coldest homes in Scotland, those most at risk of fuel poverty, are ready for that increase in the fuel price cap that we heard about today, and that those already at risk of fuel poverty, because they don't have a price cap to protect them in terms of heating oil, are protected with insulation as much as we can do to help them. And we need to get Scotland moving again. The early days of this election campaign, Presiding Officer, were bedevilled by a ferry crisis that brought our island and our coastal communities to their knees at a time when they needed our support. For all of these reasons, elections are about choosing. We offer a vision of hope and of change with fairness at its heart, and I humbly submit my candidacy for First Minister. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr Cole-Hamilton. 4 minutes 57 seconds. I'm impressed at your timing there. I now call on Russell Finlay for 5 minutes.
I can beat that. Okay. Congratulations on your election. I suspect today's proceedings won't be quite as exciting because, of course, this is largely a foregone conclusion. But I've put my name forward because it gives me the opportunity to put forward my vision for a better Scotland, for a Scottish Parliament that works on behalf of the people who put us here. John Swinney spent the entire election saying that he was going to win, and with a majority. And he said that winning a majority would be the trigger for another independence referendum. His relentless obsession with breaking up the United Kingdom is not what people want to hear. We know what matters most to the people of Scotland: the ever-rising cost of living, Scotland's stagnant economy, an NHS in a near-permanent state of crisis, the impact of immigration on strained public services. What they don't want is a distracting and painful return to the arguments of the past. Thankfully, John Swinney didn't get the majority he said was in the bag, and my party played its part in stopping him. The blue wall stayed blue as we won a hat-trick of seats across the south of Scotland. However, I was bitterly disappointed to lose so many valuable and respected colleagues in my party and beyond. And this is a very different Parliament to the one that came before. And when John Swinney is inevitably elected as First Minister today, he has some big questions to answer. He said he'll work with Sinn Féin to break up the UK, and that victims of IRA terrorism should, quote, move on. And I wonder if he understands the hurt that those comments have caused. And will John Swinney continue to put constitutional paralysis above good governance? When Scots tell him that a referendum is not a priority, as they did in another poll published today, will he listen? Presiding Officer, even without a majority, I fear that he won't listen, because independence will remain the only issue that really matters to him and his party. So here's what a sensible and responsible First Minister should focus on. Grow the economy, back business, don't attack business. Cut taxes for those who work hard and do the right thing. Fix our NHS, schools and other public services. On the economy, let's start with Scotland's world-leading oil and gas sector. The SNP opposes new drilling. John Swinney's party agrees with Labour that oil and gas should remain under the North Sea. Thousands of jobs are being lost, and this is absurd, especially in today's volatile world. Our country is going to need oil and gas for decades, not just for energy, but for manufacturing. And I asked John Swinney, does it really make sense for Norway to extract oil and gas from the same basin that his party wants to leave untapped? I think he knows the answer to that, and I make this promise today. The Scottish Conservatives will continue to stand up for oil and gas. We would get Britain drilling again. People in the North East know that we are the strongest challengers to the SNP, and we came within just over 1,000 votes of beating Stephen Flynn. And if pro-UK voters unite behind the Scottish Conservatives in Aberdeen South in a few weeks' time, we can beat the SNP again. Presiding Officer, we all have a duty to act in the best interests of the people of Scotland. This Parliament has an opportunity to transform Scotland over the next 5 years. A more dynamic and more prosperous Scotland should be our shared goal. A country of opportunity with more well-paid jobs, of lower taxes and less red tape, where hard work and aspiration are rewarded. So let's harness our proud spirit of innovation to get Scotland working again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Finlay. I now call on Gillian Mackay. Up to 5 minutes, please.
Thanks, Presiding Officer. And could I congratulate you on your appointment? Firstly, I want to acknowledge that unless something dramatic happens, I should get 15 votes, and I doubt I'll be First Minister this afternoon. But despite that, there is something to be hopeful about. The electorate has returned not only the biggest ever independent supporting majority, but also the biggest ever majority for parties that are socially progressive. Those who lost in numbers at this election were the ones chasing those votes to the right, and that has to inform what we do this session. We acknowledge that the SNP won this election and should have the right to form a government, and we will work on issues with them to make Scotland a fairer, greener and independent country. But we'll also hold that government to account to make sure that ambition matches delivery. We want to see a debate in the future of Scotland as an independent nation, and I hope the First Minister will keep his promise to bring that forward as soon as possible. We've seen how badly Westminster has let Scotland down, making things much more difficult, not just for this Parliament, but for the people of Scotland. We were promised big things in the wake of 2014, but what followed was Brexit, a decade of Westminster failure, a merry-go-round of Prime Ministers and ongoing climate breakdown. People's lives have gotten materially worse, and Scotland must have our chance to choose differently. For the Scottish Greens, independence isn't an end goal in itself. It's a tool that we can use to make Scotland better, where democracy and decision-making is closer to people. And that's why, alongside that push for a referendum, we must use all the powers we have to already to make Scotland a better place to live right now. We all heard during this election campaign the immediate and real impact the cost of living crisis is having on people's lives. There are a whole host of solutions which not only put money back into people's pockets, but help tackle the climate emergency at the same time. Providing everyone with free bus travel would put money back in people's pockets while moving more people onto public transport. We've seen the success of under-22s free bus, and making sure particularly those who are commuting could leave the car at home would help to tackle transport emissions, which we've historically struggled to make a dent in. We're seeing other countries take this step in recent months, and we should absolutely be doing the same. Families are also seeing a large portion of their income being taken up with childcare. Unfortunately, we no longer live in a time where families can survive on one income, so good quality, affordable childcare is a must. This, for us, has to be a universal offering, giving every child the same start and, crucially, making sure that the funding follows the child. Supporting families, and particularly women, to be able to work with good quality, reliable childcare will absolutely help tackle child poverty. Crucially, we need to look at our tax system and how we tax wealth in particular to make sure we can afford these measures that will support so many across society. Making sure that everyone can have a home to call their own, that they can heat that home, that we have good quality public services, that nurses and teachers are paid well, and that we deliver that fairer society. Tax is how we fund these things that are for the common good, and those with the most should contribute the most. It's clear the hopeful vision put forward by the Scottish Greens at this election resonates with the hundreds of thousands of Scots who voted for us. Above all else, perhaps, what people want to see now are actions which make Scotland a fairer, kinder, more welcoming country. Not only do we have a large pro-independence majority in this chamber, but we have a pro-Europe majority and a pro-immigration majority. This is a parliament which not only recognises the contribution of all Scots, old and new, but says Scotland's future is one which looks outwards to our neighbours and friends across seas and borders. The people of Scotland need this Parliament to work collaboratively in the face of unprecedented crises to make people's lives better, both here and around the world. The Scottish Greens are ready to do that. Scotland is ready, so let's make that happen.
Thank you. And I now call on Malcolm Offord for up to 5 minutes. Mr Offord.
Presiding Officer, welcome to your place and congratulations on your appointment. You will be well aware that 250 years ago, Kirkcaldy-born Adam Smith published The Wealth of Nations. And today, Smith is revered around the world as the father of modern capitalism, explaining how a country can be prosperous and fair for the benefit of all its people. Sadly, in 25 years of devolution, Scotland has turned her back on Adam Smith. All we have seen from the SNP is record highs in tax and spend, and grievance stoked against the rest of the United Kingdom for cynical political gain. And now, in partnership with the Greens, we are seeing the politics of envy take root. Politics that maybe meant well, but which paid no attention to perverse incentives in housing, welfare and regulation, which have instead made housing scarce, driven businesses bust, put workers out of jobs and reduced tax revenues, impacting public services across the board. With budgets under pressure, we've seen those who work and those who venture their own savings to create businesses and jobs being overburdened with the ever-mounting bill. They were, at first, those who could afford to pay a little more. But as the bill has grown, they've been asked to pay more and more, with less and less to show for it in return. Bureaucracy has bloated. The engines of our prosperity are straining, and we find ourselves punishing those who aspire, those who are ambitious for themselves, their families and their communities, simply for trying to enjoy a good, decent life. This cannot continue. It must not continue if we wish to build a prosperous Scotland that works for all. We cannot be led by this ideology of impoverishment. If we want Scotland to have world-class public services, to hum with the whirring of industry and the buzz of thriving high streets, and to put a good life within the reach of every Scot. When I went down to London as a young Scot to make something of myself, with just one suitcase, my rugby boots and £2,000 in debt, I went with true treasure. I was a product of the very best of Scottish education provided freely by the state. And I went with these most valuable of treasures, Scottish values of hard work, endeavour and honesty. I do not want to see young Scots have to go to London to make their fortune, as I and many others did. I want them to have ample opportunities to stay in Scotland and prosper. But regardless of how they make their way in the world, I want them to go with the same true treasure, the true wealth that I was given. The kind of state education that Scotland gave me is lamentably rare today, too often having to be bought, whether through paying for private education or by buying a house in the right state school catchment area. Allowing standards and disciplines to so drastically slip, as the SNP has in pursuit of ideological fads, has been to undermine the wealth and opportunity of young Scots. Real life is about incentives, and canny Scots will always work hard if you incentivise them, but not in a broken system of high taxation and welfare dependency that scarcely makes it worthwhile. Meanwhile, these inherently Scottish values of hard work, endeavour and honesty are being actively discouraged by this rotten system at every turn, with grievance and envy stoked in their place. If we want a Scotland of endeavour and enterprise, if we want Scots to enjoy prosperity and plenty, we must urgently change course. Surely all the proof we need that this current system is broken lies in the fact that 2 million Scots did not vote in this 2026 election, a staggering 47% of the electorate. Compare that to 16% non-voters in the 2014 Indie Ref. The incumbent parties in this chamber should take a good, hard look at themselves. How can Scotland be led by a First Minister from the SNP whose share of the vote fell by another 10%? Consider the decline in votes for the separatist parties combined, from 1.6 million in 2014 to 1.3 million in 2021 to 1 million this year. How can that ever be considered a mandate for separation? And how can Scotland be led by a First Minister from Scottish Labour, whose steady decline can be traced from 56 MSPs in 1999 to 17 today, and whose vote share has halved from 32% to 16%? No, Scotland deserves a First Minister who wishes to build opportunity and prosperity for every Scot, and the only party in this chamber with that agenda is Reform UK.
Thank you. I now call Anna Sarwar up to 5 minutes, please.
President Officer, I congratulate you on your election. I rise to make this speech in the knowledge that we already know the outcome of today's vote. I congratulate John Swinney and the SNP on their election win on May the 7th. My party fought the election on the belief that Scotland needs change. It's an election and an argument that we didn't win. That's disappointing, and I don't pretend otherwise, but I think it's important to convey what I still believe today. Our politics, our Parliament and our country does need to change, and we have a collective responsibility to represent and serve the people. And in the current climate, I believe we have a responsibility to bring our country together and to take on the politics of fear and blame. Because while the election result is settled, the challenges facing Scotland are not. The need to tackle deep-seated issues in Scottish society remain as urgent today, and this Parliament must rise to that challenge. We need a government that will focus relentlessly on the things that matter: growing our economy, supporting our high streets, driving down waiting lists, improving access to primary care, providing dignity in the delivery of social care, making life more affordable, giving every young person the chance to succeed, and supporting our communities to feel safer and stronger. In doing that, we must also recognise the mood in the country as it is, not as we might wish it to be. During this election campaign, one word came up again and again: scunnered. People are frustrated, angry and tired, and they're tired of political arguments that seem disconnected from their lives. And that should concern every single one of us. Because if people lose faith not only in one party or one government, but in the ability of politics itself to improve their lives, then that not only undermines our democracy, but it opens up opportunities for those that seek to divide us. Presiding Officer, half of the MSPs in this chamber have been elected to our Parliament for the first time. This is a historic opportunity for them and for all of us, for us to demonstrate either the best of Scotland or the worst of our politics, to change the culture positively or negatively, to achieve greater cooperation or greater conflict, to trade in bigger ideas or bigger insults. So I would say to the new members and the old, let's not miss this opportunity to do what's best and right for Scotland. That means confronting the politics of fear and blame, not inflaming it. We may come from different political sides, but that doesn't mean we have to dislike or hate each other. We must confront the idea that if someone believes something different, sounds different, or looks different, then they somehow have to be feared. Of course, call out and take action on wrongdoing. Yes, have big debates, and yes, confront big issues. But don't generalise, marginalise and demonise, because they might just seem like words in here to each and every one of us, but they are lived consequences for people out there. Because we must remain a nation that looks at its neighbour with compassion, not with suspicion. That's the Scotland we were when my grandfather arrived here in Lossiemouth in the 1940s, and it must be the Scotland we are today. But that also means taking responsibility, not always looking for someone else to blame, because the idea that someone or somewhere else is to blame for our problems, that idea that somehow everything would be fine if it wasn't for them over there, that too is dangerous. Because I believe our country is a country full of talent, full of compassion, ambition and decency. And I'm sure this Parliament is also full of talent, compassion, ambition and decency. Because people out there all want the same basic things. They want our public services to work. They want opportunity to be shared. They want communities to be supported. And they want a government to match the efforts they make in their lives every single day. So while I will not win this vote today, I will continue to argue for the kind of Scotland I grew up in and the kind of Scotland I want my children to grow up into. One that's based in an all of us, not an us versus them. Because our duty, every single one of us, is to come to this Parliament, to act and to serve and to deliver for the great people of Scotland. And let's get straight to work.
Thank you. I now call on John Swinney. Up to 5 minutes, please.
President, so let me begin by congratulating you on your election as our presiding officer. As we begin this new session of the Scottish Parliament, I stand before members today with a clear mandate from the people of Scotland to seek nomination as the First Minister. The election is over, the people have spoken, they have emphatically supported the Scottish National Party, and I offer to form a government to deliver on behalf of the people that we all serve. Not cautiously, not hesitantly, but with purpose, on the issues that matter most in the lives of our people. That is exactly what a government I lead will do. The challenges facing our nation are real. Families continue to feel the pressure of the cost of living. Public services continue to face significant demands. Events in Westminster and across the world continue to impact here at home, and many people are feeling the strain in their everyday lives. So this must be a Parliament and a government that meets the moment, not with incremental change, but with a clear sense of direction and an agenda that matches the ambition people have for this country. Because Scotland is a country of enormous strength and opportunity, a country with the talent, the resources and the determination, not only to react to challenges, but to overcome them. The government I lead will work to build a Scotland where families are supported through the cost of living crisis and where the pressures they face are eased, not ignored. A Scotland with a strong modern National Health Service that is accessible, resilient and there for the people when they need it. A Scotland where businesses grow, good jobs are created and economic opportunity exists in every part of our country. A Scotland with safe communities and secure energy. A Scotland that leads the way in clean renewables, protecting our environment and turning our natural advantages into lasting prosperity. A Scotland that is fairer, where we reduce poverty, tackle inequality and ensure that prosperity is shared. The government I lead will also press for the future of Scotland to be decided by the people of Scotland. The people have again returned a pro-independence majority to this Parliament, the largest ever elected. They have said with a resounding voice that decisions about Scotland's future should be taken here in Scotland. And I will ensure that the people have the right to decide on their own future. That is the agenda I offer the people of Scotland. It is ambitious, it is practical, it is ready to be delivered in this new Parliament with a new mandate and a government determined to get on with the job. I recognise, Presiding Officer, that no government delivers alone, and certainly not a government that alone does not command a majority in this Parliament. This Parliament contains strongly held and sometimes very different views. But I am confident there exists in this Parliament a majority for all of the policy proposals that I brought forward in the election. The challenge for me, which I readily accept if I am elected as First Minister, is to work in ways that enable that majority to emerge. So, in addition to setting out the policy direction of the government that I offer to lead, I also set out a willingness to work with others in this Parliament to seek agreement on measures that will improve the lives of people in Scotland. Over my years in this Parliament, I have seen this chamber rise to that challenge. Yes, we can disagree robustly, but we can also still work together to deliver for the people of Scotland. And in that respect, I welcome the substance and the tone of Mr Sarwar's comments, because that is what Scotland needs of us at this moment. Not simply debate, but delivery. Not simply difference, but progress. And ultimately, it is by that progress that we will all be judged. Presiding Officer, I am ready to lead a government that meets this moment with clarity, energy and purpose. A government that takes action. A government that delivers. And a government that is always on Scotland's side. Presiding Officer, with the mandate we have been given, with a clear plan for the work ahead and with a determination to deliver for the people of Scotland, I ask for the support of this Parliament to serve as Scotland's First Minister.
Thank you, and I thank each of our 6 candidates. They were all very well behaved, none of them over time, and I hope that will be a lesson to all of you in this chamber as we move forward. Before we move to the vote, there will be a short suspension to allow members to access the digital voting system. Can I urge all members to have their cards inserted in the consoles to enable you to vote? Thank you. Colleagues, we will now restart proceedings and move to voting. May I remind members that they must vote once only and must only use their yes button in the voting app when voting. So, again, vote yes, but only once. Once the voting for candidates is completed, members who have not voted for a candidate will then be given the opportunity to vote to abstain by pressing their yes button. I'll announce the result once all votes have been cast and verified. The first vote is for Alex Cole-Hamilton. Only members who wish to cast their vote for Alex Cole-Hamilton should take part in this vote by voting yes. No other member should vote, so members who wish to vote for Alex Cole-Hamilton should vote yes now, and you have 60 seconds. Voting time has ended. Could any member who wished to vote for Alex Cole-Hamilton and believes that they were unable to cast their vote please advise by making a point of order? No one has done so, so the next vote is for Russell Finlay. Only members who wish to cast their vote for Russell Finlay should take part in this vote by voting yes. No other members should vote, so members who wish to vote for Russell Finlay should vote yes now. And again, you have 60 seconds. Voting has now closed. Could any member who believes they were unable to cast their vote for Russell Finlay and who wish to do so, please advise by making a point of order? Okay, as no one has done, the next vote is for Gillian Mackay. Only members who wish to vote for Gillian Mackay should take part in this vote by voting yes. No other member should vote, so members who wish to vote for Gillian Mackay should vote yes now, and you have 60 seconds. Voting has closed. Once again, could any member who believes they were unable to cast a vote on this occasion for Gillian Mackay, but were unable to do so, please advise by making a point of order. No one has done so, so the next vote is for Malcolm Offord. Only members who wish to cast a vote for Malcolm Offord should take part in this vote by voting yes. No other member should vote. So members who wish to vote for Malcolm Offord should vote yes now, and members have 60 seconds. Voting time has ended. Can any member who believes they were unable to vote for Malcolm Offord but wish to do so, please raise a point of order? No one has done so. Only members who wish to cast a vote for Anna Sava should take place in this vote by voting yes. No other member should vote. So members who wish to vote for Anna Sava should vote yes now, and members have 60 seconds. Sorry, what did you say? Voting has closed. Can any member who believes that they were unable to cast their vote for Malcolm Offord please advise by making a point of order? Sorry, Freudian slip, Anna Sava. No one has done so. The next vote is for John Swinney. Only members who wish to cast their vote for John Swinney should take part in this vote by voting yes. No other member should vote. So members who wish to vote for John Swinney should vote yes now, and members have 60 seconds. Voting has closed. Could any member who believe they were unable to cast their vote for John Swinney please advise by making a point of order? There have been no abstentions, so that concludes this round of voting. There will now be a brief suspension while votes are verified. In this round of voting, in the selection of the Parliament's nominee as First Minister, the number of votes cast for each candidate is as follows: Alex Cole-Hamilton, 10; Russell Finlay, 12; Gillian Mackay, 15; Malcolm Offord, 17; Anna Sarwar, 17; and John Swinney, 57. There were no abstentions. As Mr Cole-Hamilton received the fewest number of votes, he will be eliminated from the election, and a further round of voting will take place with the following candidates: Russell Finlay, Gillian Mackay, Malcolm Offord, Anna Sarwar and John Swinney. So, the first vote in this round of voting is for Russell Finlay. Members who wish to cast their vote for Mr Finlay should vote yes now, and once again, members have 60 seconds. Thank you, colleagues. Voting has now closed. If any member who wishes to vote for Russell Finlay feels they have been unable to do so, please make a point of order now. No one has done so, and so the second round of this is voting for Gillian Mackay. Members who wish to cast a vote for Gillian Mackay should vote yes now, and they have 60 seconds. Voting has closed. Could any member who believes they were unable to cast their vote for Gillian Mackay and who wish to do so, please advise that they wish to make a point of order. Sorry, point of order, Hugh Manavanan.
Yes, I was unable to do so because of technical snafus. Sorry. And I do intend to vote for Gillian Mackay.
Your vote has been recorded for Gillian Mackay. Thank you. The third vote in this round of voting is for Malcolm Offord. Members who wish to cast their votes for Malcolm Offord should vote yes now. And voting is again 60 seconds. Voting has closed. If any member who believes they were unable to cast their vote for Malcolm Offord, please let me know by making a point of order. No one has done so. The fourth vote in this round of voting is therefore for Anna Sarwar. Members who wish to cast their vote for Anna Sarwar should vote yes now. And again, 60 seconds. Voting has closed. Could any member who believes they were unable to cast their vote for Anna Sauer please advise that they wish to make a point of order? No one has done so, so the fifth vote in this round of voting is for John Swinney. Members who wish to cast their vote for John Swinney should vote yes now. And once again, 60 seconds. That vote has closed. Should any member feel that they were unable to vote in that session, please make a point of order. Yeah. That concludes the votes for all candidates. However, on this occasion we are going to have an abstention vote because it seems that not all members have voted. So if you didn't vote in those previous rounds and wish to record an abstention, you may wish to abstain by pressing your yes button now, and you have 60 seconds to vote for that abstention. Thank you. Point of order, Ariane Burgess.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I pressed my button in error and it can be disregarded.
I'm afraid we can't do that. Unfortunately, it has been recorded already. Apologies for that. But that's the rules. Mark Ruskell.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. It appears that I was unable to vote for Gillian Mackay in an earlier round of voting. I don't think it was recorded, if you wouldn't mind checking that. The vote was for Gillian Mackay.
Yes, it wasn't recorded, but you had the opportunity through a point of order at the time, as indeed one of your colleagues did, so I'm afraid that will not be recorded. And I should have said to Q, Manavan earlier on, that you should stand up to make your points of order. It's all right, we're all on a steep learning curve here. Can I say, unlike all the new MSPs, I wasn't given any kind of explanation of how this tech works before I sat down here, so there you go. That's happening at noon tomorrow for myself and the Deputy Presiding Officer, so things should be smoother thereafter. So I'm now going to call a brief suspension while we actually tally up the votes. Thank you. Colleagues, the total number of votes cast for each candidate were as follows: Russell Finlay, 11; Gillian Mackay, 13; Malcolm Offord 17, Anna Sarwar 17, John Swinney 57. So 115 votes were cast. As there were no overall majority, we will again go through a round of voting, but this time Russell Finlay will be eliminated. So the candidates that we have before us now are Gillian Mackay, Malcolm Offord, Anna Sarwar and John Swinney. So, in this round, the first vote will be for Gillian Mackay. So, only members who wish to vote for Gillian Mackay should take part in this vote by voting yes. No other members should vote. So, members who wish to vote for Gillian Mackay, please vote now. And once again, you have 60 seconds. Colleagues, the vote is closed. Could any member who believes they were unable to cast a vote for Gillian Mackay please advise by making a point of order now? Okay, thank you. The next vote is for Malcolm Offord. Only members who wish to cast their vote for Malcolm Offord should take part in this vote by voting yes. No other member should vote. So members who wish to vote for Malcolm Offord should vote yes now, and you have 60 seconds to vote. Voting has closed. If any colleague feels that they wanted to vote for Malcolm Offord but were unable to do so, please make a point of order now. We have no points of order, so the next vote is for Anna Sarwar. Only members who wish to cast their vote for Anna Sarwar should take part in this vote by voting yes. No other member should vote. Members who wish to vote for Anna Sarwar should vote yes now. Members have 60 seconds to vote. Could any colleague who wished to vote for Anas Sarwar but feel they were unable to, please make a point of order now. We have no points of order. The next vote is for John Swinney. Only members who wish to cast a vote for John Swinney should take part in this vote by voting yes. No other member should vote. Members who wish to vote for John Swinney, please vote yes now, and again you have 60 seconds. Voting is ended. Could any member who believes they were unable to cast their vote for John Swinney and who wishes to do so, please advise by making a point of order now. No point of order has been made. So the next vote, and the final one in this round, is for any member who has not yet voted and who wishes to record an abstention. Members wishing to abstain should press their yes button now, and you have 60 seconds. Voting time has ended. Should any member who wishes to abstain feel they were unable to do so, now is your opportunity to make a point of order. There are no points of order, so that concludes this round of voting. There will now be a brief suspension while the votes are counted and verified. Thank you. Colleagues, in this round of voting in the selection for the Parliament's nominees First Minister, the number of votes cast for each candidate is as follows. Gillian Mackay, 15. Malcolm Offord, 17. Anna Sarwar, 17. John Swinney, 56. 105 votes were cast, and as John Swinney has secured more than half of all the votes cast, I declare that he is now the First Minister of Scotland, and I'd like to congratulate him. I would like to congratulate the First Minister on his election, and I now call on each of the party leaders to respond. Mr Anna Sarwar.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. On behalf of the Scottish Labour Party, I congratulate John Swinney on his election as First Minister. I wish him well in office and do so sincerely. To serve as First Minister is a great privilege, but also a profound responsibility. And to hold that office at a time of such uncertainty brings to the role an added weight and an added responsibility. And we must all collectively in this Parliament rise to the challenges facing this new session of our Parliament. And to meet the challenges before us, we will need a new spirit of unity and cooperation where we agree, not just to shout louder when we disagree. That is what the people of Scotland demand, and that is what the people of Scotland deserve from their national Parliament. Because the need for action cannot be clearer. Scotland still has an NHS under severe pressure, with patients waiting too long in pain and families struggling to access the care when they need it. Scotland still has family budgets under real strain, with too many people feeling they are paying more and getting less. And Scotland still has young people anxious about their future and communities that feel left behind by a politics that too often seems remote from their lives and the people across this country. Those are the realities facing this Parliament that has now been elected, and those realities demand seriousness from all of us. And my party and I will approach the new session of Parliament with that seriousness. Yes, we will hold the government to account for the promises it has made. Yes, we will challenge where it falls short. And yes, we will hold its feet to the fire in the name of the people of Scotland. And of course there will be matters in which the First Minister and I profoundly disagree, and we will not be shy about saying so. That will be our responsibility to say that clearly and without hesitation. But there will also be areas where this Parliament has a duty to rise above old habits and take action where we agree to make sure we are getting things done for Scotland. This country does not need 5 more years dominated by grievance, division and fallouts while the pressures in people's lives continue to mount. It needs a Parliament focused on delivery. It needs action to bring down waiting lists. It needs action to make life more affordable, and it needs action to create opportunity for our amazing young people. But it also needs a politics that is prepared to bring the country together rather than drive it apart. It needs politics that will confront the politics of us versus them, and also the culture of fear and blame. That is the standard by which the First Minister will be judged, and it's the standard by which this Parliament should judge itself too. And I promise that we will lead, yes, an effective but also a responsible opposition, because that too is our duty. The purpose of this Parliament is not to perform for itself, but it is to serve the people of this great country. So I again congratulate John Swinney on his election today. I wish him well, and I look forward to working with him where we agree to deliver for Scotland. But more importantly, I say this to him. The real test begins now. Of course, this will be a moment to celebrate victory, but it must be more than just a celebration of victory. Now must be the moment that we focus on delivering for the people of Scotland. And we wish him well on that endeavour.
Thank you. I now call Malcolm Offord. Up to 4 minutes, please.
So on behalf of Reform UK, I wish to offer my congratulations to John Swinney on being appointed as First Minister of Scotland. It's a historic moment for him. and a great responsibility for that office. Indeed, heavy is the head that wears the crown. We, in opposition, will always seek to find consensus where we can agree on one single issue, which is to make Scotland more successful and more prosperous. We will always seek to support policies that do that. But where we find policies that do not deliver that, we will scrutinise and challenge, and that is the role that we will take upon ourselves in this chamber. The agenda to make Scotland more successful has to deal with a number of core issues, which of course we debated at length during the election. There is no question that tax is too high and too complicated in Scotland. We know right now, for example, that in the NHS we have care workers managing their workflow to try and avoid being dragged into higher tax bands, and this is unnecessary and needless. So this needs to be looked at, and if the SNP come forward with solutions on that, we will be supported, because we believe we will raise more tax revenue if you reward the people of Scotland and incentivise them to do so. Similarly, our energy prices are too high, and we have policy at the moment driven by ideology. We will oppose that. We will scrutinise carefully the £5 billion in the budget spent in net zero policies. I think we'd all agree that the cost of living is a major component of that is energy prices. So where we can find consensus there, again, we will support. We need to get the balance right between work and welfare. The best form of welfare anyone can have is a good job. We need to help our fellow citizens back into good jobs. We need to create pathways to work. Where we have 750,000 Scots of working age not in work, we need to help them back to work. And if that number is heading towards 1 million, we cannot allow that to happen. Our young people need support into good jobs. We need to challenge whether we should be sending 50% of young people to university. Maybe we should be thinking more about college training, apprenticeships. We need good jobs that will not be taken away by AI, where young people can make a start in life and we have real serious jobs, whether that be a welder, gas technicians, lab technicians, care workers, etc. So any policies brought forward support that, we will again support. Immigration needs to be fair and controlled, and we'd urge the SNP to restore the local connection rule and give priority need to local people so we have cohesion in our local communities. And in the NHS, we know that 93% of Scots say it needs reform and that we need greater access to GPs and we need to deal with delayed discharge. Again, these are areas that we will support where the SNP come forward with that agenda. And in terms of value for money, I think it's interesting to note that all the parties agreed that quangos are out of control, there's too many of them, costing too much. There's also a demographic deficit. And so therefore we will support measures value for money. The idea here is the election campaign that we all conducted in a spirited manner. We actually did find in a number of those debates that we agree on some of these issues. So therefore, let's work together on these issues, but make no mistake, the role of Reform UK, with 70 newly minted MSPs who have come in here with one thing and one thing only, which is to drive forward an agenda that makes Scotland more successful and more prosperous, and will support any government that delivers that.
Thank you. I now call Gillian Mackay. Up to 4 minutes, please.
Thanks, Presiding Officer. I want to start by congratulating John Swinney on his election as First Minister on behalf of the Scottish Greens. It is a remarkable achievement to win a 5th term in office to the SNP. And I think it's safe to say this probably wasn't the role that the First Minister anticipated this time last session. And on behalf of my party, I want to acknowledge the sacrifices that both he and his family have made to allow him to serve Scotland. The Scottish Greens will work with his government to deliver on our priorities and deliver for the people of Scotland. The opposition parties that took that constructive approach in the last session of Parliament have grown in number, and it's clear that that is what the public expects us to do. Put simply, our constituents expect us to cooperate where we genuinely share values, even if we don't agree on every detail of policy. That doesn't mean that this government will have an easy time of it from the Greens. We will hold government to account and ask difficult questions. We need to see work quickly on childcare and free bus travel in particular, but other public services need support and reform too. We will push for this government to go further and faster, especially when it comes to tackling child poverty and the climate crisis. In the first 100 days, this government could fix some of the issues with childcare that we raised before dissolution. Ensuring that childcare is truly free at 3 would put hundreds of pounds back in the pockets of families before we move to expand free hours to 2-year-olds on what we would like to see on a universal basis. The 1140-hour entitlement is a national policy, but some families have had to move their children twice due to changes made by local authorities. Working with councils to ensure cross-boundary placements are able to happen would support the choice of families. We need to work together to put the NHS on a sustainable footing, to talk about how we support councils to deliver the services that they want to deliver, and we finally have to scrap and replace the council tax. Ultimately, in the first 100 days of this government, we need to see tangible work to deliver on the cost of living crisis that will make people's lives cheaper for the long term, supporting the climate and making a more welcoming and outward-looking Scotland. The Scottish Greens will not shy away from holding the new government to account, but we look forward to working with the First Minister to deliver for the people of Scotland.
Thank you. I now call Russell Finlay. Up to 4 minutes, please.
Presiding Officer, I and my party sincerely congratulate John Swinney on his re-election as First Minister. I commit to working constructively with him and his ministers when offers to do so are made in good faith. Now, John Swinney and I fundamentally disagree on the future direction of Scotland. In my opening remarks, I set out a vision for a more prosperous Scotland at the heart of the United Kingdom. Now, John Swinney isn't short of people offering him his advice. But I asked him to hear me out about what I believe should be our collective focus. People desperately need some respite from endless SNP and Labour tax rises. Growth and prosperity flow from educating our young people, creating opportunity, nurturing aspiration, rewarding success, and giving businesses the space and the support to thrive. And economic growth is going to be absolutely critical. And that's because there's a looming £5 billion black hole in Scotland's public finances. Throughout the election campaign, I repeatedly warned about the potential impact of this vast and impending deficit. Others didn't want to talk about it. But with the election now behind us, there's no escaping from this hard reality. To plug the gap between revenues raised and government spending commitments, John Swinney is likely to do one of two things, possibly both. One, cut funding for public services, and number two, raise taxes. Both of these would be a mistake. Don't cut frontline services. Cut the waste. Cut the quangos. Treat taxpayers' money with respect, and cut a benefits bill that is unaffordable and unsustainable. And on taxes, I say this: no more. Scots already pay almost £2 billion a year in income tax than they would for doing the same job elsewhere in the United Kingdom. Businesses have been hit with sky-high rates bills that will force some to cut jobs or cease trading altogether. Now, Mr Swinney might not choose to listen to me, but he should listen to Scotland's business leaders, who repeatedly warn that you cannot tax your way to economic growth. John Swinney knows this to be true. But even though he knows about the perilous state of the public finances, my fear is that he will remain distracted. He's already said that he'll make the first vote of this Parliament a demand for another referendum. Even without a majority, that's his intent. He knows that the people of Scotland don't want this, yet we heard it again from him today. So for the sake of Scotland, drop it, Mr Swinney. Put country before party. End the politics of grievance. Stop blaming others for the many problems made by the SNP over 2 decades. Govern for all of Scotland. Presiding Officer, my party will continue to stand up for hard-working Scots struggling to pay the bills. We will be honest about the hard choices that lie ahead, and we will work tirelessly to hold this government to account. Thank you.
Thank you. I now call Alex Cole-Hamilton.
Thank you very much indeed, Presiding Officer. Presiding Officer, we each of us, the 129 MSPs sworn into this Parliament last week, and all the former MSPs that I see scattered in the public gallery, know what it feels like to be elected to serve your community. It is a pretty awesome and wonderful experience. I can only imagine what it must feel like to be elected to serve your country, to lead it. I congratulate, therefore, John Swinney. This is an immense moment of personal pride to him, I know, but it will be to his family and his friends in the gallery today, and I congratulate all of them. More than a quarter of a century ago, the architects of this chamber, of this Parliament, of the precepts and all of the rules that we follow in this place, agreed that this was a building to be forged around consensus, around the pursuit of respectful compromise where it could be found. All too often we have fallen short of that ideal, and as I said in the closing hours of the last Parliament, the promise of this new session is something where we should reach for that compromise where we can find it. Because right now, trust in politics is at an all-time low. People are tired and they're frustrated. They are right to be, because they look to this chamber for answers about why they can't get their operation, why their child's classroom is not as good as it used to be, or why their education standards are falling down the international league tables, why they can't get access to care at the first time of asking. And yet they've seen the division and the rancour that holds back so much of this chamber. So we owe it to them to try and lay as much of that aside as possible. I said throughout the campaign that the change that Scotland really needs is a change of government, and I still believe that to my fingertips. But while the question of who governs us is now settled, I recognise that the SNP will control this Parliament for the next 5 years, and I make an undertaking to them that where we can, Liberal Democrat MSPs will strive to get things done, because that is what we got elected to do. And this is where I lean into the words of an unlikely supporter of the Liberal Democrats. When Kemi Badenoch said that you think of a Liberal Democrat as somebody who turns up and fixes your church roof. Guilty as charged, Presiding Officer. That is exactly what we stand for in our communities. We sweat the small stuff, like who takes out the bins or sorts the potholes, but we will always reach for policy that deals with the big issues of our time, like the crisis in our social care service, in our health service, the crisis in our educational institutions, both higher education, primary and secondary. We will reach for policy that helps people half a world away that we may never meet, because that is what Liberal Democrats fundamentally believe, that we are communitarians, both in the local communities that we are elected to serve, but also in the global community in which we find ourselves. This is a proud day for John Swinney, and I'm sure that I take him at his word when he says he will look for consensus, and I will offer that where we can find it, but we're not afraid to say no as well, as we have done many times in the past. John F. Kennedy said once to a White House Correspondents' Dinner that no republic can succeed or administration can survive without fierce debate and criticism. And we will offer that when it is merited. It will sometimes be fierce, but it will always be liberal. But we will never be big enough, too big, to reach for the consensus that improves the lives of the people that gave us our instructions and sent us to this chamber. So I congratulate him and his party today and offer that commitment to reach for consensus where we can find it. Thank you.
Thank you. And for up to 10 minutes, I now call on Scotland's new First Minister, John Swinney.
Presiding Officer, it's a profound honour to accept Parliament's nomination for the office of First Minister, and I thank Parliament for its support, and I thank the leaders of the opposition parties for the generous comments that they have made. I realise that they will have their criticisms to make. I'm sure there will be many of them in the years to come, but I look forward also, and I will cover more of this in what I say today, to working collaboratively to advance the interests of the people of Scotland with others. I commit myself today to upholding the standards and the ideals of this Parliament, as I have done throughout the 27 years in which I have had the privilege to serve as a member of this Parliament. And I commit myself to lead a government which meets the aspirations of the people that sent us here. Public service demands so much of all of us. And as we begin this parliamentary session, I pay tribute to the commitment of all members in being prepared to serve the people of Scotland. Although we volunteer for this task, We do so knowing that our public service has an implication for those close to us. I'm immensely grateful to all of those who have helped me to reach this point today, of whom there are too many to mention, but a large number of them are here in the gallery today. A particular burden is carried by my family, who, as Alec Cole-Hamilton has mentioned, might reasonably have expected me to be slightly more available for them than I am these days. To each of them, I express my thanks for their love and their support. Every day, I'm supported in what I do by my wife Elizabeth, who demonstrates a strength, a tenacity, a determination in the face of increasing adversity and challenge that is awe-inspiring. Elizabeth's approach to life is, of itself, a very valuable example of how to act to any First Minister, especially her First Minister. I literally cannot offer myself to be the First Minister of Scotland without the sacrifices that Elizabeth is prepared to make, and I acknowledge and thank her for that this afternoon. Today, I feel many of the same emotions as when I first became First Minister 2 years ago. The same sense of humility, the same profound awareness of the weight of responsibility and also the remarkable privilege of holding this office. But today is very different from the moment that I stood here 2 years ago to accept office as First Minister. I stand here today at the start of a new Parliament with a resounding personal mandate from the people of Scotland. I offered the people of Scotland reliable, trusted and experienced leadership in turbulent times, and today I pledge to provide that to my country. The people have chosen a government that is firmly on their side, a government that listens to them and turns their personal priorities into national ones, and a government that acts decisively on the breadth and scale needed to meet those challenges. That is the kind of government I intend to lead. I have ambitious goals for this parliamentary session: to ease the cost of living crisis by expanding on what is already the best package of support in the United Kingdom, to ensure the NHS is protected and easy to access, always there for people when and where they need it, to ensure cohesion in our communities and to protect our environment, to grow our economy and create opportunity across the country, and to make concrete, tangible differences that people can see and feel in their homes, in their communities, in their day-to-day lives. I look forward to working with members of this chamber to achieve all of these goals. I'm aware that we'll be working in a much different Parliament than the ones that have preceded it. 1 and 2 of my fellow members are new, and I recognise that while my party is by far and away the largest in this chamber, we do not have a majority on our own. But I remain firmly of the view that when we engage in constructive dialogue, we are capable of tremendous progress. I believe I can achieve a majority for every ambition I have for this Parliament. I look forward to working with many here to do so. That, of course, includes the question of Scotland's constitutional future, on which I recognise there are profound differences of opinion. But the people have now elected the largest pro-independence majority in the history of devolution. The Scottish people have yet again made their wishes known, loud and clear. They want a more secure and a more prosperous independent nation, one where decisions are made not in Westminster but here in Scotland. My government will continue to seek to abide by those wishes, and again, I look forward to working with many in this chamber to do so. But independent or not, I want to make one thing clear to Parliament and to the public today. I will work to be a First Minister for all of Scotland, a First Minister that works to bring people together with a strong sense of national purpose. The country I seek to build is a country where everyone feels accepted and able to contribute to our national story, a country where we seek to bring communities together, a country where we act to heal division, a country where we seek to find common ground. The election result proves that the people of Scotland believe theirs is a country of boundless potential, a country that can be more prosperous, more equal and more confident in her future, a country of fair, well-paid work, and of vibrant, multicultural, safe communities. A country that cares for its natural resources and sees the transition to clean energy as both an environmental necessity and an economic opportunity. And a country that puts our collective prosperity back into the communities that work for it. They want Scotland to realise that potential, and they have tasked us with working together to make that case. Presiding Officer, the idea of working together is where I would like to conclude my remarks today. At the dawn of the 7th session of the Scottish Parliament, I am now one of only 4 members from the original class of '99, and of course you also, Presiding Officer, are one of that class. From that vantage point, let me offer this reflection to the many new members. This is a very exciting time in any Parliament. All of us rightly feel the privilege of having been chosen by the people of Scotland to represent them, and we are all full of anticipation for the exciting journey that lies ahead. But it will not be long before we have to return to the people to explain to them what we have done for them. And if there is one thing I have learned over my years in public service, it is this. When the 5-year term ends, it is those who can look their constituents in the eye and say they have achieved things for them who win re-election. All too often in parliaments, I've watched members celebrate when bold proposals are blocked, seemingly for political expediency rather than for any substantial concerns. There was a time when even I thought that negative politics worked into the bargain. But I'm standing here today having won a resounding mandate from the people of Scotland, because in this election my party offered a vision of hope, ambition and optimism. And now, Presiding Officer, I offer to work across party lines to deliver our agenda. By electing a Parliament of minorities, the people have given us a specific instruction to work together. Voters value cooperation among their politicians. They want to see more of it. And in this Parliament, I will work to see more of it too. Presiding Officer, I gratefully accept the opportunity to serve as First Minister. It is the greatest privilege of my life, and I promise to work every day to repay the trust that the people of Scotland have placed in me.
Thank you, colleagues. That now concludes the selection of the First Minister. It's now time to move on to the next item of business, which will be an urgent question. Now, in order to get as many people in as possible, and a number of people who have supplementaries, I prefer short and succinct questions and answers to match. Adam Harley.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government what discussions it's had with Police Scotland, local authorities and football stakeholders following the disorders seen in Glasgow city centre last weekend.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. As the First Minister has stated, the Scottish Government utterly condemns the incidents of violence, vandalism and antisocial behaviour that took place on Saturday. Whilst the vast majority of fans are well behaved, it is clear that when a minority are not, the impacts on policing and a range of other services is enormous, and it is the taxpayer that foots the bill. We fully support Police Scotland, and I have sent my best wishes to the officers injured in the disorder whilst helping someone with a medical emergency. Ministers have been regularly updated on events, and the Scottish Government has engaged with Police Scotland, Glasgow City Council and SPFL, and incoming ministers will do so again. They will make clear that governing bodies and individual clubs must step up and use their influence to help tackle this continuing misconduct.
Adam Harley.
I thank the Cabinet Secretary for that reply, and I also wish the police officers who were injured on Saturday a speedy recovery. The overwhelming majority of supporters enjoyed their day responsibly, and I think it's important that any measures that may come forward do not unfairly impact or punish law-abiding fans. But does the Cabinet Secretary agree with me that all football clubs and relevant authorities have a shared responsibility to minimise the risk of disorder around major fixtures and celebrations? And where these preparations require to be backed by funding, where does the Government think this funding should come from?
Cabinet Secretary Angela Constance.
Presiding Officer, I thank Mr Harley for his question and, of course, congratulate him for being the first member to successfully lodge an urgent question of this new session of Parliament. He is quite correct to state that the majority of sports fans and football fans are law-abiding facilities, but we have seen the consequences when the mindless minority impact on our communities, on our policing, and this cannot be tolerated. And it is the case that we all, whether government, local authorities, other stakeholders, the football authorities and football clubs, that we must all act together. But it is clear to me, because I stand here before you today as the Justice Secretary, and it is clear to me that if there had been a managed, organised celebration, that the impact on policing would have been much less than it was. Police Scotland had to deploy over 900 police officers and, of course, 2 of their officers were significantly harmed. And we must reflect on that, and each and every stakeholder must get on the same page and ensure that we, where possible, minimise the risk of this happening again.
Adam Harley.
I thank the Cabinet Secretary. It's also not right that local businesses should have to close or clean up, and I think there was a significant impact on local businesses over the weekend. People need to know in advance where in the city is going to be impacted so that any disruption in future can be managed. So whether that's through fan zones, open-top bus parades, or whatever other way people want to celebrate. For that to happen, we need coordination and leadership. So what further guidance can the Scottish Government provide to help prevent a repeat of the disruption we saw at the weekend?
Secretary.
Presiding Officer, it is useful to note 2 things. Firstly, if the result had been different, that there was a well-planned and coordinated arrangements for a celebration in Edinburgh to take place. And the second factor, if I point to Operation Moonbeam with respect to fireworks, violence and disruption that has blighted our communities. But Operation Moonbeam has taken action all year round with good local leadership that is visible, where the consequences are clear, and that has driven down violence and disorder around fireworks. And I think we need to learn in this instance from Operation Moonbeam.
Thomas Kerr.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. The scenes we witnessed in Glasgow at the weekend are beyond disgraceful, but let's be blunt, it's happening way too often. And Glaswegians shouldn't have to live with violence, vandalism and behaviour like this every year, and clubs must take responsibility. So does the Minister agree with me that Celtic Football Club and other teams must start paying the bill for disruption and destruction when incidents like this happen, rather than taxpayers?
Cabinet Secretary.
Presiding Officer, as I intimated in my original answer, and I will repeat for clarity, that governing bodies and individual clubs must step up and use their influence to help tackle this continued misconduct. And my view is that now nothing should be off the table. I will do what I can within my powers, as will any minister in this government. But no solution should be off the table. We all need to get on the same page and prevent this disorder from happening in the first place.
Paul Swinney.
Sir, and I welcome you to your place. Cabinet Secretary, does the Government agree with Glasgow City Council's claim that it simply is not credible to establish an official managed fan zone because the cost of it is not a burden the Council can bear? And given that the impact of football in Glasgow is equivalent to a Commonwealth Games every year, could the Government take some leadership in establishing funding pooled together between the local authority, national government, commercial sponsors and the football clubs to establish an official van zone to prevent Glasgow streets and emergency services from being subject to entirely preventable disorder every year.
Cabinet Secretary.
Presiding Officer, I have to be candid with the Chamber and say that as Justice Secretary I have had full briefing from Police Scotland just on Friday past on the preparations that had been made irrespective of the result, and I do contrast the preparations that were made in one half of the country in comparison to another. So therefore I have to respectfully disagree with some of the commentary from Glasgow City Council. But I repeat what I said to Mr Kerr. There should be no solutions off the table. We all have something to bring to this. And we have to prevent this happening again. And prevention falls upon us all. It is not down to Police Scotland to be the only player in this. They should not be exposed, and their officers should not be exposed. We know from other experiences that good planning prevents disorder, or at least reduces the risk. And we need to be planning, not just in the weeks and months ahead, but like Operation Moonbeam, this has to be a consistent endeavour with good local leadership.
Patrick Harvey.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I've lost count of the number of times that we've had questions like this asked in relation to an incident like this. And I think the citizens of Glasgow are as sick of it as we are, more so, in fact. The behaviour of fans of whichever club, these incidents are simply unacceptable. Surely it's not enough for the Cabinet Secretary to talk about encouraging clubs to step up and show responsibility. Isn't it time that we were very clear and made them face legal consequences for the action of fans in these circumstances?
Cabinet Secretary.
Presiding Officer, I appreciate thoroughly that the good people of Glasgow and the communities impacted by this disorder will be at their wits' end, because as the previous member, Mr Swinney, said, there are aspects of this behaviour that is predictable, as we have seen over the years. The member will be aware of the action that this government is prepared to take. It's in our manifesto around widening the scope of football banning orders. I am open to any review, for example, involving the criminal law in these matters, but that does not, by any stretch of the imagination, allow any other partner, the football authorities or football clubs, from walking away from their responsibilities. And there should be no solution that's off the table. I think we all need to get together. We will have to have very frank but respectful conversations, and then we all need to get on the same page to prevent this happening. And we do know that sporting sanctions have evidence of having an impact where they have been implemented in Scotland, but also elsewhere in Europe.
Liam Kerr.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Scottish Police Federation minutes from May 2025 warned of low staffing levels in public order policing. Now, given the appalling disorder in Glasgow, the estimated 3,000 people involved, the serious injuries to officers and the 1,000 fewer officers that we've got since 2020, will the Cabinet Secretary seek assurances from the Chief Constable that Police Scotland is funded and resourced sufficiently for the specialist public order capacity it needs?
Cabinet Secretary.
Presiding Officer, one of the advantages of having a national police force is that over 900 police officers were deployed. I did, of course, mention in an earlier answer that if there had been an organised celebration event, that the requirements placed on policing would have been less. And at risk of raking over old arguments or old coals, Presiding Officer, it is this Cabinet Secretary for Justice that negotiated with the Finance Secretary record funding for policing in Scotland of £1.7 billion, whereas, if I recall, I think I was the only person in budget negotiations to make that pitch, and no member of the previous opposition parties and their spokespersons made that request to Ms Robeson.
Pauline McNeill.
Attacks on our police officers simply doing their jobs is unacceptable, but identifying those responsible for criminal behaviour last Saturday, the police need all the tools that are available. And now CCTV coverage of Glasgow city centre is now no longer available 24/7 due to funding cuts. Now, in any future discussions on how we police effectively, to identify those responsible and prosecute those, and that they know that the rule of law will be enforced, will the Cabinet Secretary, and I also hope the First Minister as well, can assure Parliament that in any future discussions we will address the fully operational CCTV in Scotland's largest city, Glasgow?
Cabinet Secretary.
Presiding Officer, of course there is a very important role for CCTV in this regard, and also other tactics that Police Scotland have at their disposals in partnership with local authorities and other stakeholders. I do hasten to add, as recent events this week would show, that Police Scotland and prosecutors do have a good record in bringing to justice those who are intent on mobbing, rioting, vandalism and antisocial behaviour at football teams. But it is important that we all work together to ensure that policing they do indeed have the tools of the trade. And our police force, I have to put on record and commend them, are very good at following up on disorder, and those who think they have walked off free should just be very wary of any celebration, because I know that Police Scotland will leave no stone unturned in bringing those people who have been on the wrong side of the law to justice.
Alison Thewlis.
Thank you very much. Does the Cabinet Secretary agree with me that clubs and fan organisations have a significant role to play in encouraging responsible behaviour among supporters? And would she encourage further engagement among all groups and representatives of the local community to find ways of preventing this antisocial behaviour in future, as it has had a significant impact on both residents and businesses in my Glasgow Central constituency for many years now?
Secretary.
Presiding Officer, yes, I would agree with the cut and thrust of Ms Thulis's question to me, and the action that is required to be taken now. It is clear when I look at evidence in Scotland and further afield that when you connect fans' behaviour to consequences, that does have an impact. But as with many issues, there will be more than one solution. And I repeat what I said earlier, Presiding Officer, there should be nothing off the table in terms of solutions, because we have to get into a better space to prevent this happening in future.
And Stephen Kerr.
Order is to be deplored, but given the Cabinet Secretary's favourable comments on the plans and arrangements in Edinburgh, is she of the opinion that the events in Glasgow reflect a failure of planning and preparedness by Glasgow City Council?
Cabinet Secretary.
Presiding Officer, what I would candidly say to Mr Kerr and this chamber is that it is imperative that we see good, strong local leadership. That has to involve local authorities, but it also has to involve football authorities and football clubs. And I make the contrast based on a briefing that I had from the Chief Constable and Police Scotland, that there was a well-coordinated set of arrangements should Heart of Midlothian Football Club if they had won the match, that was in place. And what policing requires in terms of these celebratory functions is a coordinated plan, because that complements the policing response. So what I am saying to everybody, without fear or favour, we all need to get a grip and get on the same page.
Thank you. Now, I had intended to finish the urgent question at this point. We've got 3 further members who wish to ask questions. I'll allow those 3 members to ask questions because there's clearly a lot of interest in this topic. So, first will be Graham Simpson.
Many thanks. I'm most grateful. Prior to the shocking scenes in the city centre, there was a rather unseemly pitch invasion at Celtic Park. And that's not the first time that's happened.